It is our pleasure, as always, to have some time with the Speaker of the House, Chris Welch, after a wild marathon week at the state capitol for the second week of veto session. Uh, Mr. Speaker, first of all, thanks for taking some time. I hope you got a little bit of sleep. I know that's in short supply around the State House this morning. Certainly a wild day.
Yeah, well, thank you, Patrick, and thanks for having me on your show. And I got a little bit of sleep, but it didn't matter because my motto is "Winners do the work." It was important to get some big things done while we were here, and that was our top priority because opening a utility bill has been scary for folks. People have been worried about whether their buses and trains were going to run on time or whether they were going to lose their jobs because layoffs, I hear, were going to be imminent if something didn't get done. And so I figured I can sleep for a while when I get home because we won't be back until next year, and I'm glad we got some big things done.
All right, so I want to talk about energy, which is I think a key component, and you and I may have a little difference on that issue. So I look forward to that part of the conversation. But I want to start with transit because this is I don't know if you read the newsletter this morning. Somebody compared it to the rising of Lazarus yesterday. That after the governor made his comments. I guess Wednesday, essentially poo-pooing the funding sources in your original bill. The general consensus seemed to be that it was dead. And by midday Thursday yesterday, we're hearing maybe this is coming to life. We see a bill late. You guys are taking a vote at 2 a.m. The Senate's taking a vote at 4 a.m. I need to know how this thing came back to life because everybody in the building wrote it off.
Well, this is sausage making. This is how it's done. This is how it's supposed to work. The Senate passed a proposal in May that the House didn't like. Here in veto session, we filed a bill, passed it out of committee, that the governor and the Senate president didn't like. The Senate president said he couldn't get that past his chamber. And the governor and the Senate president offered other ideas, and I offered other ideas. That's how a legislative process works. And, we had time. I said it all along, we had time, and we were able to continue to meet and work through it. And we got some big things done by working together.
Do you believe that that eliminating a broad-based statewide tax like the Amazon tax or the pizza tax, whatever it got dubbed in the Senate back in May, or the amusement tax in your original draft of the bill that included a Cubs game or an Illini game or even your Netflix or Hulu subscription, do you think pulling those out and making the funding and at least the increased taxes more city and suburban specific, road fund specific, made this an easier haul in the end?
Well, listen, let's be clear about something. None of the Senate's package when it comes to taxes was in the final package, and none of the House's taxes were in the final package. The House found it hard to digest taxes on ride shares and delivery fees. The Senate had issues with the amusement tax, for instance. The governor had issues with speed cameras and an unchartered, unused billionaire tax. And so, we said if neither one of those is an option, what is an option? Let's keep talking. And we did. And we all had the same goal: to deliver access to safe, reliable transit. And working from the same goal, we knew we were going to be able to get something done.
That said, there were some concerns among downstaters, specifically during the debate on this bill, about whether you want to call it rating or shifting or however it would be, motor fuel sales tax funds from downstate roads and bridges to transit. They're calling it a $400 million, I think was the number they were using, that's being taken away from roads, specifically downstate. Obviously, there's still going to be money from the regular motor fuel tax there that's part of the lockbox. But are downstate roads bridges? Are they being taken advantage of by this bill? Are they being hurt by this bill because of the funding shift to transit?
This is a bill that I believe is going to help all of Illinois. It's going to help the entire state. It's going to help the transit system in Northern Illinois. It's going to help downstate transit. This bill has a funding mechanism where 85% of the funding will go to Chicago, and 15% of funding will go to downstate. In the past, I heard that was a little different, and this is an improvement on what has been done in the past. And certainly when it comes to mass transit, having a dedicated funding stream was extremely important, and labor played a big role in helping make that happen. You got to remember, labor has affiliates all over this state, and to have labor sign off on this deal was very important to us. It's our objective to pass policy that's going to help the entire state, and this agreed bill that had labor in support of it, we believe that gets it. This gets that done. It makes the entire state a better state.
I want to ask you one more thing on transit before we move on, Mr. Speaker, and that's just relating to, I think, what would be the affordability or the cost of living around the state, right? We're seeing fare increases eventually here. We've already seen the Metro fare increase, but you're going to see an RTA tax increase. You're going to see a toll increase as part of this. When we've already got the gigantic property tax bills, we've already got the energy bills that have gone up. Housing prices are through the roof in the suburbs, and there's already a huge problem with that, as you well know. Is this just another feather in the cap for those that are critical of Democrats and spending and taxing, that Illinois is just too unaffordable to live in?
Well, first of all, we have said all along for over a year and a half that it was important to save our transit system. It's important to save our public transit system. And we said to do that, we were going to have to do something that we had never done before. We were going to have to do reforms, governance, and funding in the same package if we were going to get it done right. We have said that from day one, and that's what the final result does. It does have reforms that were critically needed with a funding package in it. The largest source of this funding comes from a fund, sales tax on motor fuel. That's not a tax on residents, and the legislature did not tax anyone. They gave the authority to the RTA to pass a tax to raise additional funds to help transit in the long term. Saving public transit and reforming administration is something that we all agreed that we needed to invest in. It's important. We need to keep trains running on time, buses running on time, people employed. All of that is critical to a state's economy. An efficient, safe, reliable public transit system is important to a state's economy. And that's what gets it done. Allowing the public transit system to collapse and not address the issues that we addressed would have been far worse for our state than saving the public transit system. It was critical.
I want to move on to the bill you moved last night on immigration and the actions of ICE and just full disclosure here. I've been a little conflicted on this, right? Because I understand the idea of someone who is here illegally is committing a crime, and there's a penalty to those crimes. But I also see the practicality of, you can't just pick up abuelas off the street and shoot pepper sprays at mom or pepper balls at moms in Aurora, like we saw recently. Clearly, ICE is, I would argue, and I think you agree, clearly ICE is overstepping its authority at times, but isn't that a federal issue, Mr. Speaker? Isn't that an issue for federal courts and federal policy and not for the state, right? This feels like it's the legislature trying to step into an area of the law, and you're the lawyer, not me, that's under federal jurisdiction and not of state jurisdiction.
Well, in our system of governance, states have rights, and in Illinois, thank God we live in Illinois, because we've been able to continue to push back against the reckless Trump agenda, both in his first term and here in his second term. Here in his second term, 10 months on the job, where he said the cost of living would be his number one priority and he would bring the prices of groceries down on day one. Here's what we have. We have the cost of groceries at an all-time high, inflation going up, people losing their jobs because unemployment is going up. And we have a president focused on giving out tax cuts to billionaires while trying to take away health care to poor and middle class families, take away food and nutrition assistance to poor families. And he says he wants to go into cities and reduce crime and arrest the worst of the worst. But more than 72% of the people detained by Donald Trump's immigration raids have no criminal history whatsoever. Trump's troopers have legalized racial profiling, turned chemical munitions indiscriminately on Illinois communities, and assaulted and detained lifelong citizens, legal residents, and immigrants alike. And as a state with states' rights, it was important for us to push back and speak up and do something about it. And that's what we did last night with House Bill 1312. Hospitals should be safe spaces. Campuses, higher education campuses and daycare centers and courthouses should be safe spaces. And that's what we did. And we put some teeth in the bill. Civil arrests will be prohibited in courthouses and hospitals and the like. And if they do these things in an unconstitutional manner, there's a private right of action that's been created.
This seems like the defining issue of our time all of a sudden, especially the illegal immigration part of this, and maybe we're stepping past our state government comfort zone here, but it seems to me that when we talk about the divide that we're facing day in and day out, that this is one of those core issues that I hear from my Republican friends that they are the criminal illegal aliens, right? And I know you got a little frustrated with one of your members last night who used that term, and I certainly understand the perspective that people who are here illegally have committed a crime, are committing a crime. And I think there's a perception on that side that Democrats are just for the open borders, make them all citizens, give them free stuff, and it seems like there's no interest in, now it's in Illinois it seems like it's Democrats versus Trump on this instead of how do we find a solution. And I just, maybe from your perspective, because I appreciate your thoughtfulness on issues like this, how do we move past the partisanship and the tribalism? Because clearly this isn't working with CBP and ICE busting down doors where they shouldn't be, with fear in the streets over someone who essentially has committed a civil penalty in being in the country illegally.
Well, first of all, let me say this. President Biden and Republicans in Washington had a bipartisan deal to reform the immigration system that has been broken in this country for a long time. And Donald Trump stepped in and killed that bipartisan deal because he thought it would help him in an election. That was what was needed. Immigration reform was needed in this country for a long time, and we were on the cusp of getting it. Now, Donald Trump and Republicans in Washington are in complete control of government. They've got the White House, they've got the Congress, the House and the Senate, and Donald Trump has probably the most friendly Supreme Court that a president has ever had. They can get immigration reform done if they want to. I don't believe that's what they want. They want chaos in communities. They want destruction on American families, and to just continue with this unprecedented assault. All of this chaos is going on, and every day there's something else distracting Americans while Trump is enriching himself and his family and his billionaire friends and donors continue to get richer and richer, and at the expense of middle class and poor families in this country. If they wanted immigration reform, they can do it today because they have complete control of government.
Speaker, I wanted to talk about energy before we let you go. I've I've made public my frustration with what felt like um, a lack of interest from those in government, from the governor down to the legislature, about skyrocketing energy prices this summer. I'm sure you saw it in the ComEd area, and folks in the Ameren area saw the the double or triple in their bills at places. Mark Denzler from the IMA said this is a fundamental issue for drawing and keeping business in the state is energy costs. And in the end, while there are some things that are helpful in terms of demand in this bill, maybe the long-term benefits of battery storage, there's still a new line item on energy bills because of that battery storage. There's nothing done about increasing capacity, increasing production. One of the union folks talked about bringing natural gas plants back online. It feels like we're not serious, whether it's leaders in this state, whether it's people who are talking about it like me, about what are we going to do to reduce the burden that people are paying to these energy companies, because this is incredibly unsustainable in the long term.
Patrick, I got to tell you, I think what we did this week was historic and monumental, and it's going to prove itself out. The Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act puts Illinois on a better path by bringing down home energy bills, both short term and in the long term. What we did was significant and can't be understated. Creation of virtual power plants, the increased battery storage, the energy efficiency programs that will come as a result of this bill will help bring down costs in the short term and the long term. That was extremely important because we're all out there in our communities. We're knocking on doors. I've been having a listening tour all over the state, and people have been scared to open their utility bills all over the state. Pick a region. It was important for us to get something substantive done, and that's what we did. And that can't be understated. This was a significant piece of legislation. Getting labor and environmentalists to agree on a piece of legislation is not easy. And during my speakership, we've done it twice now on some big energy policy. Once in 2021 with CEJA, and now here with the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act. And that's because this is a good piece of policy that plays the infinite game. It's going to help people. It's going to make Illinois a better place. And I hear your frustration, just like I've heard frustration of regular folks at the doors. And that's why I believe that this was the right thing for us to do this week.
With the decrease in production, because of the closure of natural gas and coal plants due to CEJA, and the fact that the wind and solar haven't quite gotten off the ground as maybe we hoped they would, are we at a point that we need to talk about CEJA being a failure?
I don't think CEJA has been a failure at all. I think most people will disagree with you on that. CEJA has been quite successful. The governor, the Senate president, myself, we've been invited to speak globally on the success of CEJA, because clean energy is the way to go. Going back to dirty energy sources is not the way to go. And the thing you need to do is increase supply. And there's ways to do that. And this bill did that. And I'm proud of that. And I think it's going to be borne out over time. But for us, we know that in the short term, there's going to be some immediate impact. But over the long term, I think you're going to see the greater impact. But CEJA set the stage for what happened in this bill.
All right, last thing. Put my grumpy has been around the State House since 2006 hat on. Why do we have to do big stuff in the middle of the night? I certainly know, and I think you all deserve a lot of credit for being more on time recently and keeping the schedules better, and I know stuff comes together late, but shouldn't there be some sort of understanding that these things need to happen with sunlight? Why not come back on Friday and do the transit bill in the light of day with the public so that they can see it, instead of these things always dragging in until 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning?
Patrick, I think that's a false narrative. I think from a time perspective, yes, things happen late at night. 2:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. And but the way the legislative process works, this stuff didn't happen overnight. This stuff took months and months of negotiation, lots of meetings on transit, on energy, you name it. Big things take a lot of time to get done. And when you get to the final conclusion, the drafting process and making sure the bill reflects what the agreements were. A lot of times you'll get a bill back and there's errors in it, and you have to fix those. And there's a lot of time that you're waiting around for those things to get corrected. The legislative process ain't pretty. Sausage making ain't pretty.
I'll
But
say.
I got to tell you, I think we've done a very good job of bringing sunshine into this process and getting more and more people involved in the process. Groups that have never been at tables are at tables. They're in the rooms where it happened, and I'm really proud of that. And we're going to be continue to be committed to that. But just because a vote takes place late at night doesn't mean something negative is happening. That very well, in this case, a lot of good things have been happening. And it just happens that we take our time and get it right and put it on the board when our parliamentarian and lawyers tell us the bill is ready.
Mr. Speaker, a pleasure as always. I give you a lot of credit for being willing, even on a short night, to come and take some tough questions on things. It's always good when our leaders are available and accountable, and I give you a lot of credit for that. So thanks so much for taking some time this morning.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate you, man.